that Gen Zs can't resist with the two amazing women that we see here on stage with us. We have Mabra and Lauren Ferry. So very excited to get into the meat and potatoes. But before we start to uncover all the ways that we can create these ads, I just wanted to say a couple words about Motion first. So on our end, Motion is the home for creative strategy. And essentially what this means is that we all know that creative has become the most important lever for success in all of paid advertising. But what we also know that there's two primary teams involved. There are our media buyers who are quite analytical and our creative teams who are exactly that, more creative. Both of these teams need to operate in tandem, but there's almost some natural friction that's created. And at Motion, what we look to do is help bridge that gap with creative strategy. And we're going to be talking all about the different stages in the creative strategy flywheel today. So both Laurens are going to bless us with exactly what to look at. And the way that Motion empowers this workflow is that we focus on making it easy to analyze what's going on, visualize ultimately the performance, and then share this across the board. If anybody's interested, I'm going to have a button pop up on the screen. It's also going to populate in the chat, and you'd want to learn more about Motion. Please feel free, give it a click that I have right here so we can check it out, and then you can see it in the chat there too. Cool. Couple housekeeping notes, your questions. What you'll notice on the top right-hand side of your screen is a chat button, a Q&A button, and a polls section. Throw those questions just into the Q&A so we're able to just help get to those closer to the end. A recording is going to be made available after this bad boy, so you'll have what you need. And then we're always looking for feedback, whether it be on content, the overall production, and anything in between. So that's where we've got your backs. Sweet. So that's enough out of me. It's time to get to the main event here of how to create ads that Gen Zs can't resist. And like I'd mentioned, we have Mabra, Lauren Ferry with us today, and they are the co-founders of Lauren Labeled. A couple words on my end. I've known them for a little while now. I think it's longer than we all expect, and they're absolutely incredible when it comes to everything creative. Now, what do I mean by that? What I really mean is we're in an age when people talk about how quickly your ads are going to fatigue and you need to swap them out. But the really awesome thing about these two is that they've made so many banger creatives for honestly a number of different brands that are still live to this day. So that's a testament to true winners across the board. So everybody, please give them some love. Please give them a follow all over the place. And welcome Lauren and Lauren to the show, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Evan. That was such a good intro. We're super excited to be here, and I feel like this is just going to be so juicy.
Yeah.
I agree. And you know I'm your biggest fans. Like, this is easy. This is the easiest part for me more than anything.
We feel the same about you, so don't even worry.
Stop this. Okay, so to get into how to create ads that Gen Zs can't resist, like at Motion, we focus a lot just on this overall flywheel, more or less. And I actually wanted to kick us off in our first bucket here being research. So these are usually the steps that help us build out personas that we wanted to dive into. And I'm going to throw this first one to Lauren F. What I'm curious about is where the heck do you even get started with everything on the research side of things?
Yeah, I love this. So the biggest thing for Lauren and I is like we really, really like to take a good amount of time to make sure we completely understand who the client is, who they're going for, and the really, really specific things that go into targeting that specific buyer demographic. So we typically take about 2 weeks to do our research when we start off with a client. We'll spend about 2 weeks going into a lot of the things that we ask in our intake form. When it comes to the intake form, the biggest things that we ask are like, what are the branding guidelines? What problem are you trying to solve? Messaging that's working, messaging that you guys would like to test, messaging that isn't working. So all of that kind of goes into the intake form, as well as like some little nuances that are specific to the brand. A good example of like a nuance with one of the clients that have come to us is they were a face, like a skincare brand, and they had this oil that you would like a vitamin C oil. And so normally you see a lot on TikTok, people actually use the dropper to apply it on the face, but they specifically said in the intake form, we need to have it on the fingers and then it needs to be applied to the face. another good example of like a nuance that would be in an intake form would be, we had this flower delivery service. And so the biggest thing for them was when you open up the box in the first shot, it has to be above and it has to be showing the full flowers and none of the stems. So there's a lot of little nuances that we try to get ahead of and get all that information from before we can even start into like our own research ourselves.
Yeah, can I just chime in there really
Of
quick?
course.
Okay. I also wanted to say, like, I feel like a lot of brands, when we ask for branding guidelines, they throw us like their color palette. And it's like, it's way more than that, because just like Lauren was saying, it's like in the way your product is used, like people can get that wrong. And also a lot of the brands that we work with, they already have a media budget. They're already spending on ads and they've already paid for the data. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's like, show us your top performers, show us the ones that have flopped, show us your statics, so we can use that same messaging within the video ads to, use messaging that's already worked in a different medium. So I just wanted to add that in there before we moved on.
Yeah.
No. I really love it because like you're getting to know, well, like Lauren F, you mentioned, like getting to know these brands intimately at the end of the day through that process. And I know like people typically go through the intake form and the specific examples are super helpful. Lauren M, I'm going to throw one at you. So of course we start with the intake form. I'm curious about like where else are you looking to get this information? And then where does that information actually live at the end of the day, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
Awesome.
All good?
We
Okay.
are
So
live.
we ask for that intake form from the brand. That's pretty easy. And then the bulk of that like onboarding phase is spent here building out the buyer persona and doing the market research that is so important to the performance of your ads. And I think that a lot of people might look at this and maybe assume a lot of these things, like, oh, I know this, and kind of just brush over it. But really, this market research phase is the meat of ads that live on 7+ months, or ads that flop immediately. Especially with Gen Z, you really have to get to know them. They're very savvy consumers. And so, like, I don't know if you've been on TikTok comments, but they'll be the first ones to call you out when you get something incorrect. So don't be scared, but you need to do your research with everyone, especially this demographic. So in this buyer persona template, like this is where everything lives with our market research. And so we'll even go like be a little extra and go down to like naming the buyer persona.
Nice.
We'll cover the basic like demographic stuff of what's, how old are they? What's their gender? Maybe where do they live? Is it rural? Is it urban? Like, are they in a city? And then more of the like touchy feely stuff of like, okay, what do they value in relation to this brand? And so we actually took a few examples. This was for a makeup brand that we've worked with. And so values and with this skincare brand that is like plant-based botanicals, like very clean, like some of the values that their ideal person would look for is like, are they sustainably sourced, are they cruelty free? And the difference is like you're targeting people who care about those things versus someone who goes to the drugstore, picks up the cheapest concealer or whatever, probably isn't your buyer demographic. Like that's not your ideal client. And so it's important to know those things. And then we go into favorite brands, which also gives us a really great place to research. We live on the TikTok feed, like we just spend way too much time there, and we also are successful with our jobs by spending time on there too. And so that's a huge resource for us when researching. So if you list out your customers' favorite brands, that will also give you a place to like, okay, let me go to Kosa's TikTok and the comment sections for competitors' videos, related videos, even existing ads in the brand's account. That is like a gold mine for what people care about, their misconceptions, their barriers to buying. And so that's where we get a ton of this research too. And then we go down to buying concerns, buying motivations, and as well as like pop culture interests. And then we also do hashtag research and keywords, which kind of go hand in hand, but I think it's really important to understand the language that your buyer speaks, because you can call it out. And the whole point of this is to get someone to stop and pay attention to you so that you can convert them.
Right. Also, another cool thing to add about like the hashtag research and the keywords is like when you put some of those hashtags into TikTok, you just get this massive For You page of all these different people who care about the same things. Like, and it's really, really cool to just be able to see this is really who I'm trying to target. Let's stalk them. Let's see the comments. Let's see what they care about, and really like dive into like who they actually are.
Yeah.
Oh, is Evan going in and out, or is it just me?
I don't hear him at all.
I think he just got out.
Maybe he'll be back in.
Oh, there he is.
Get me on stage. Get me on stage.
Okay, you're on. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you see me on stage, or am I in the back room? Okay.
You're on stage.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I promise I didn't leave you, and I promise I heard everything that you all are saying. And my one ask is, if you ever start building personas out and it starts to match me, can we call it an Evan persona? Like, is that cool? Can we start to make that happen?
100%. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So I love that you search. What we talk about just being native to the platforms, just living in there every single day. And you've done the work of taking the intake form and then marrying it with external research. And what we have now is that nice persona that you put together at the end of the day. And within that persona, what I'm always curious about now is, like, technically speaking, you can like serve so many different types of angles, hooks, and everything to a certain persona. So Lauren F., this is going to be a question for you. Now that you have your personas, how do you turn this into like creative action at the end of the day?
Yeah. This will be a very interesting thing to share, and I'm like so curious if people have a similar process. But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen really quick, and I can kind of go over our exact process on how we kind of do everything. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Might have to zoom in a little bit more for them if you can.
Okay. So we use a tool called Miro, which is basically like a whiteboard in a sense. And this is where we kind of get everything down on paper. And like I mentioned, every creative process definitely is not the same. So for some people, they might use, a ton of different hooks, and they might all put those in, one Google Doc or whatever the case may be. This is what we found work after trying a lot of different things. And so I'll kind of start off from like left to right. So here is where we keep a bank of
Can you
stick.
zoom in a little more?
Yeah. What about now? Is this fine?
Keep going. Keep
More?
going. Yeah. Can you guys see that? Is that better? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Awesome.
So here I have we have like this bank that's basically like these sticky notes. And what's so great about this is we can drag and drop these. We can always add more, and they kind of just live within the actual client's Miro board. So you can see we've had listed out, after all of our research, we'll kind of do a deep dive, and we'll just go in and we'll make all these sticky notes that say pain points or like buyer objections. And then we'll do all the value props under the sun that we can think of as far as the brand goes. So this is one of the Scrubs brands that we've been working with for over the last year and a half. And we just have all these different value propositions that you guys can see here. We'll also add in like some call to actions that we can use, and then also variations, which I'll get into in just a second. So then I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit. But over here is basically like the skeleton of where we build our ad creatives. And so what we really, really like about this is you can just literally take the value props from over here, drag and drop, and start basically building your script out. And so what's so cool is like this is just a huge creative space. And then as far as the hooks, you guys didn't see any hooks over in the bank. And that's because one big thing about Lauren and I is we're constantly on TikTok. So when Lauren and I are spending time on TikTok, whether it's at night or during the day, any ads that we come across or any videos that are even organic that we come across and we're like, wow, that actually stopped me. It made me want to buy, or the visual was just so engaging, even if it's something that we're not even interested in, we'll throw it in a Slack channel. So I think that's something that really sets us apart from a lot of other people who like are constantly coming up with these ideas and these different scripts is ours are constantly fresh while also keeping our learnings like in our back pocket. So we'll take a hook from our inspiration board in Slack, or we'll take some sort of inspiration from our Slack channel. We'll create the hook out of it, and then we'll pull the value props in where you can kind of get the whole entire flow of how the script is going to be.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on, like, this is definitely just like the skeleton of the script. And I think it's really great because we can also kind of dissect these skeletons too. Like if we wanted to swap out a value prop and do a new script that way, it's like boom, one video turns to another video, and you can easily make like in a second 3 to 4 different like concepts just with all of your ideas on these sticky notes. And I just wanted to say, like, probably from an outsider's perspective looking at this, it's like what are you like, what is this? But with how many different moving parts there are in the creative process, you do have to find the balance of like, okay, how can we systemize, if that's a word, systemize this, like make a system out of it without draining it of like that creative energy and that creative flow that you do need for really great creatives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lauren and I have so much fun making these now. Like in the beginning when we were trying to figure it out, it was like just kind of boring and felt really repetitive. But now that we have this Slack channel of all this inspiration, we pull from there, we throw them in here. And then, like Lauren was mentioning, these are all the different variations that we've written out in the blue sticky notes. And so that's where you can really, really learn to scale your creatives and then just do all these different types of variations with your winners.
Lauren, can you zoom into some of the sticky notes and also call out like some examples of the variations?
Yeah, good idea. Can you guys see
Zoom in
this?
a
Okay.
little bit more. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll close in. Okay. So here are just a few. So switch order of the sections. That's something I can explain a little bit later when I share a script. Get rid of voiceover and just have text captions. Start with ending results first. Change the hook. Change the ending visual. Change the call to action. But as you can see, there's just a ton of different mashup. This is one of our favorite ones.
This is a look inside of our brains.
I
Yeah,
love this.
it's
I
definitely
love this
like
so much.
that SpongeBob episode where like they're going through all the files in the brain. Like that's
Yeah.
how it is.
I actually have a follow-up question related to that. Not so much SpongeBob, more of like the look into your brains, more or less. So
Yeah,
this is absolutely incredible. Like I love that it marries not only the high level just themes and everything, but you're diving literally into like modular videos, right?
right.
What I'm curious about is like how do you get to this point where you can start building this out? Is it literally you two jamming in a meeting or what does that look like?
A lot
Yeah.
of sweat and tears first. And and because I'm telling you, like we built this thing from the ground up. So we went from the Google Docs everywhere and just
Mhm.
like you have so much going on and so many moving parts, but we were like, okay, how do we like make this a process? And so yeah, Lauren and I, we would just, it was through trial and error, and then we were like, listen, let's just have like something where it's like a brain dump, because a brand is going to have the same value props for the most part. They're going to have the same value props. They're like, there are so many factors that stay the same, so it's like, why would we not just like throw those down to have them in front of us and then kind of
Mhm.
build the script that way? And so we found this and it works.
Yeah.
Lauren F, were you gonna add something on the end? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, no, that was it. I just wanted to make sure everyone like got to see what they wanted to see and I can stop sharing my screen. I don't know if people are taking like notes or screenshots or anything like that.
Yeah, I also wanted to say this is a board for our client. So, like, all of the sticky notes are specific to that client. So,
Mhm.
those all change from client to client. And then what stays the same is like those, I guess, guides at the top of like, okay, list all your value props, list all of your pain points, list all of your CTAs.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I love that you've been able to start to section it out, right? Because Lauren M, this is going to be a question for you, I believe. It's just like what I'm thinking about now is how are you determining or what have you seen be the most impactful piece to look to scale? So is it those individual value props, specific emotions, personas? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing, and this probably doesn't come to anyone's surprise, is your thumb stops and your hooks, because it is like being in marketing, you're in a constant battle for attention. Like I said, the modern consumer is very savvy. They're exposed all the time to noise and to ads. Like if you scroll on Instagram, I think every three posts it's an ad. And so they can sniff out an ad in a second. Like I'm the same way. Like if it looks like an ad, nope, like you're not getting me today. And I swipe past it. And so, like, the first thing that you have to do as a marketer is grab attention. And so, how do you grab attention? With a really good thumb stop. And so, if sometimes we'll see in motion where a video will have a really high conversion rate, but the thumb stop is not, it could be higher or it's not as high as another video. And then we'll see a video with a really high thumb stop, but a lower conversion rate. And so that's kind of like a really easy way, like low hanging fruit, to pair the two. And then you have, a match made in heaven. I think the next thing would be value props. I think a lot of the times brands are, they're working internally and they can be very close to the work that they do. And so a lot of times we'll see brands make assumptions on what they think the consumer will care about, or what the consumer will think is cool, or care about. And more often than not, we will be surprised by the value prop that wins over the audience. So, for example, our scrub brand client, they are really price competitive, and so that's like their huge thing, is like premium scrubs at a fraction of the cost. But people, we have learned, like we've been with them for a while, and we've learned like people just eat up the demonstration of this spill proof technology with the scrubs. And so most of the videos now start with some liquid being splashed or thrown at the scrubs and rolling off. And so I think just like being aware of that, it's like, okay, let's not make assumptions. Let's actually go by the data of like, okay, what do people actually care about? And then also, again, Gen Z is very smart. And so we expect, we just expect like ship straight to your door. Like that is not a value prop. Like ship straight to your door. That's how everything is. Like I can get basically
Very
anything shipped
true.
straight to my door. So you
Yeah.
need to have like really solid value props that people actually find valuable.
Absolutely.
And we've done like up until this point, like it's so cool how you can marry it together because we started with building the initial personas out, logging that information. Then it's prioritizing exactly how we want to build these out to match the personas, right? But then that
Mhm.
brings us to our next step, which is basically the process of like finding creators, briefing them, and everything in between. So I'm going to
Mhm.
split this into a couple different questions. Lauren F, I'm going to throw this one at you, but I'm curious
Mhm.
like what scripting looks like in your world. Are you literally writing it out word by word? This is what you do, or are you asking
Mhm.
them to embody some of those personas?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so you guys can get like the full insight of what a script looks like over at Lauren Labeled. So you guys can see this, okay, right?
It's a
Yeah,
little small. Can you zoom in a little bit? Keep
What about
Lauren
now?
going.
M holding us accountable. Love it.
Yeah.
What about now?
Yeah, I can see that pretty well.
Okay, perfect. So, something that's really cool about our agency is we do have a custom platform that we use to script all everything, send everything out to creators. It's all tied in with the editor and the writer as well. So, this is what a typical script looks like when a creator will open it up. It'll have the title, it'll say, the creator due date, the final due date on when it actually needs to be sent to the client, the brand, the round, the week, and the creator's name. And then this is kind of like, really, this is like, there's no secrets here. This is how we do everything. So we'll always start with, I'll kind of scroll through this first. So we'll always have these sections laid out. So it's like hook, lead in, results, value props, call to action. And these are kind of like our tried and true frameworks. But when I say we are so hyper specific, I mean, we are very, very hyper specific, like smiling and catching the package. Like, I can't just say catch the package, like, it needs to be smiling and catch the package. Opening the package and doing an unboxing, opening plastic bag and pulling out scrubs. And so here you can also kind of see how we have these boxes on the right hand side. And if there's agencies on this call, like this is something that I will say has made our lives so much easier when we figured out how to do something like this. And it really boils down to like something where this comes in the lead in. It's a voiceover, and then also it's the creator standing in front of the camera posing in the scrubs. Those are two completely separate shots. So it's 4 and 5. And so as I kind of go through the script, you'll see all these other boxes. It'll say voiceover, not voiceover, things of that nature. But once I go through and I see at the bottom there's 12 boxes, that means that that creator should be uploading 12 shots or 12 videos that are all going to be how we put this whole entire thing together. So we do shot by shot, word for word. The only kind of room we leave is like if we write y'all and you don't say y'all, don't say it. But if you say y'all and it says, you know, something else, make sure it sounds organic. So that's a little bit about the
I
scripting.
wanted
Yeah.
I wanted to say something here too. Like, if there are other agencies in this room with us or creators, like they might look at this and be like, "This is overkill." Like, you're gonna tell me line by line, like every single action that I need to do. But when you're working with brands who need creatives at scale, one of their biggest problems is, and this is across all different verticals, all the different prospects, all the different brands that we worked with, one of their biggest problems is like the what's the word, I guess the consistency, like how there are so many different variables and they don't know whether a creative is going to take 3 days or it's going to take 3 weeks. Like, there are so many ever changing variables, and it's like, this is how we take total control, and this is how we deliver high performing ads to you every single week. It's like, we have to do this because we everything that you see has been learned through trial and error, and we have tried that, the route of, well, we'll leave some room for creative freedom.
Or just a
Yeah.
loose brief. We've even tested that in
Yeah.
the very beginning of our agency as
Yeah.
well.
And what happens is, like, no one knows what the end result is supposed to look like. And so
Right.
then we see the end result, and guess what? There needs to be a reshoot. The client's not happy with this. Like, no one, they maybe said the brand name wrong, which Lauren can talk about the branding guidelines in a second, but it's like no one really knows what success looks like or the end result looks like. And so if no one knows, then you see the end result and it's like, I'm not happy with this. And so that way we're taking full control, and that creative freedom actually ended up being room for error, unfortunately. And not to say that, you know, there aren't creators who can take a much less detailed brief and just make something beautiful out of it, but this has been kind of just our overall experience.
Yeah, for sure. Evan, do you have any other questions there before I move on to branding guidelines? Or I guess,
I do. Just out of like my own curiosity, I appreciate you asking. Like, I feel
yeah.
like there was one quick piece we glazed over, which is
Mhm.
like, hey, so we made this platform. And it's like, hold on a
Mhm.
second. Made your own briefing platform? Incredible. So, what I'm curious about is like the why behind it. A lot of people use so many other options. Why did you come to the place when you're like, we need to build our own thing?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I genuinely feel like in the beginning of when we started the agency, it was one of those things where everything lived in its own separate space and it just was not scalable in any way, shape, or form. Like, I couldn't
Hmm.
go to Notion to copy and paste a script and then copy the link into an email, make sure that they received the email, and make sure that everything a part of the process was just by memory. That was just something that we could not keep doing. And we spent probably the first 6 months, right, Lauren, for first 6 months of our agency doing it like that. And our heads were just spiraling out of control because it was so hard to keep track of things. And so what we realized was we needed a central place. We needed a central place where the writer submits everything into the portal, where that then gets moved into assigning it to the creator. The creator will accept or decline the script, and then we'll move it over all the way until there's no revisions and the editor can pick it up.
Hmm.
And it's in this just giant view of like project management.
Yeah,
I
all
love that.
complete with SMS automation, which is really cool for the creators. Yeah, I mean, the creative strategy and the briefing alone is a full-time job. And
Mm-hmm.
so with all these different moving parts, like we Notion just didn't have what we were looking for, like the way we needed it to be built out without spending 10,000 hours a week manually sending all of these creators their script and then like running around and making sure they got packages and all of that. So it really wasn't like an option for us. And I think there are, at the time of when we were building this, there were other services where they give you a portal and things like that, but they were more self-serve. It's like, okay, we connect
Yeah.
you with the creator and like we connect the brands with the creators. And that was never the problem. The problem was never creators getting connected to the brands. It's all the in between that makes a successful ad and that makes, your ad campaign scale.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
ownership mentality is incredible. Like you've been through the fire and you're like, okay, how do we just make this
Oh
work
yeah.
for ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
It
the
was,
last follow up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
The last follow up that I was going to ask here that I think people might be curious about. One of the things that's absolutely incredible that you do is the volume of output, right? Like not a lot of people are being so specific in a succinct way at the end of the day. What I'm curious about is how are you determining like how many clips that you'll ultimately need back or how many versions of that output you might need back?
Mm-hmm. Wait, so your question was, sorry, it was how do I figure out how many shots the creator is
Yeah,
responsible?
yeah, yeah. There we
Okay.
go. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're totally fine. So once we hand over that Miro board that we showed earlier to our writer, it'll basically go into like probably anywhere from 1 to 3 versions of the script. Just kind of like making small edits, making maybe an extra, like this most likely in this first box could have been smiling and catching the package. And then we could have added like, opening the package and those specific things. So I think once we see like the original script that comes from a writer is when we kind of go into those details and we're like, let's add a
Gotcha.
few more. Maybe let's add a transition here. Let's add like a completely different shot here, or let's show it in this way. And we can't just assume that they're going to be filming that. So we have to write it down. And so that ends up being an extra shot that they have to be responsible for doing. I will say, since a majority of our ads are under 20 seconds or between that 20 to 25-second mark, it is typically about this amount of shots.
Hmm.
It totally depends on the brand and the specific product that we're talking about, but it is normally never, I'm never doing 20 checked boxes on the side. That would be too long of a video, most likely.
Yeah, I will say, since we're talking specifically about Gen Z buyers in this session, I will say the sweet spot is like that 20-25 seconds or even shorter sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but on the other hand, like if your target demographic is like Gen X, what we found is they don't respond well to like those quick, fast creatives that are like 15 seconds. I feel like they're just like processing still. Like I feel like they're just not used to, like, the Gen Z brain is something to be studied. But I just feel like they creatives work better for them when it's like a minute to even 3 minutes long, and I've seen even longer than that. So just a little tidbit of something that we've learned
Mm-hmm.
along the way.
Yeah, definitely.
I, I love it. And Lauren F., you put up with my questions long enough. Please, please,
Yeah.
please take us through the brand guidelines, please, there.
No, yeah, you're good. So the last final thing to this script is, like you guys saw at the top, we have like all the specifics on like deadlines, due dates, kind of just the organization of it, the script, and then at the bottom, we have the creator guidelines. And so this changes from brand to brand. And so if there are other agencies on this call, like this is the one thing that I would say, make sure this is 100% in front of the creator's face before you ever send out any type of brief or script, because it's so important and it's going to avoid all that back and forth and all the revisions. So like some of the things that you can see what we have here for this specific brand, but some of the things that are important to be mindful of is like, how do you pronounce the brand name? Sometimes you think it's obvious and then you get a clip back and they're saying it completely wrong. So
Through the
definitely,
whole video.
yeah, the pronunciation. Um, if it is a clothing brand or like maybe a jewelry brand, what are those specific guidelines for how it's supposed to look? For this specific brand, it's so important that there's no wrinkles in the scrubs. That is like the number one thing for the CEO. So that's in big bold letters. Like you're going to be refilming if it's not, been thrown in the dryer or steamed prior. Other little branding guidelines, like for this one, it was tuck it in. And then little things like, could any logos be in the shots? What does your hair or jewelry look like on that person? And then we also like to include at the bottom, here's one where we're like, here's an example of how it's supposed to fit with a creator that had like the perfect fitting scrub set. And so we gave an example so that they can see that before they start filming. So there's definitely a good amount of stuff that needs to go into these branding guidelines. The final most important thing is we love to always mention, like, remember to be high energy, be really organic. And our favorite saying is act like you're FaceTiming a friend. Like that is our number one go-to. We like to always just mention, like, act like you're picking up the phone, you're telling your friend about the scrubs that you found, and like that's the tone that you need to match. So those are definitely important things. And then at the bottom, text us if you have any questions. We're huge on communication, and we text our creators probably like all day long.
Love that.
When it comes to anything. And I think that might be something where brands may fall behind a little bit, is where they're like emailing and it might be 12 hours until a response. Well, your creator might be in the middle of filming and they have a specific question. You kind of got to be there for them. So my biggest thing when I get on creator calls is I always say, like, hey, if you're in the middle of filming, pick up the phone, FaceTime me, call me, text me, send me a video, let me know if you have any questions, because I want to make sure you get it right too. I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
The biggest goal here is to, like, when it comes to production, is to not refilm, because when you need to refilm, it just drags out the timeline even further. It puts us behind with our editors. Like, our editors don't have footage to get started. So biggest thing, and I think for creators too, like, you don't ever want to have to redo this whole thing. But something I also wanted to add was with the branding guidelines, like, even if you're not an agency and you're a brand, like if you're, because a lot of brands do the creative briefing on their own, bless their hearts, and they're managing creators and all of that stuff like that. This is how extensive it needs to be so that you can get the desired final product as soon as possible. It's a lot of legwork up front. Like with Lauren and I, we always thought the bulk of it was in the filming, like in the production, but we realize it's really in the legwork up front that will help set everything else up for success.
100%.
And another thing, because this work, like you've talked about, not only is it long, you want to get it right, you want to give as much context as possible. But now what I'm really curious about is, like, these creators you're texting, these creators you've built great relationships with at the end of the day. Lauren, I'll throw this one to you. Where are you sourcing your creators? How are you building these relationships? What does that look like?
Yeah, we exclusively source through TikTok. So we have an assistant, and part of her role is to headhunt people who fit a specific criteria. She's trained really well on being able to see, like, okay, like, they have good content. Let me reach out to them. So she'll reach out to them with our application, and then they'll apply. And then Lauren kind of leads the way on, like, doing creator calls, which I think are super important, because there are a lot of agencies out there and a lot of platforms that do something similar. And I think creators are sometimes weary of, like, are you guys legit? Like, are you, because some are legit and some aren't. So I think that does a lot with, like, the relationship building. And so we kind of stalk them on TikTok, and then they will apply. And to apply, you have to submit a portfolio. And so there are three major things that we look for in a Lauren labeled creator. So the first is, Lauren kind of touched on this a little bit, is the tone. So this is actually, like, you wouldn't think that it would be that hard to find, but I think that people get nervous or they just aren't aware of it. But, like, you don't stop and watch a video when it's monotone or when it's unengaged or unexcited, especially for Gen Z. Again, like, Gen Z wants to, they need that authenticity. They need that genuine tone to come through. Otherwise, if you're not, they'll see right through it and they'll call you out in the comments. And so for tone, it's like, you should sound excited. You should sound genuine, you know, like exactly what Lauren said, like you're talking to a friend. Like when you tell your friend about a product that you found that you really like, what do you sound like? You're like, hey, oh my God, you have to check out this thing. Like you're excited about it. You're not like, oh my God, I literally love this product so much. You
I'm
have to buy.
obsessed.
Don't walk, run, bestie. Like that's not gonna do it. So that's the first major thing. The second is aesthetics. I kind of have a little bit of a hot take here, but I prefer like neat lived in backgrounds. So we look for that. I prefer those over like, I see a lot of the UGC creators using like the little, they're like white boxes kind of. It's like marble. So it's like a clean, like nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that won't perform, but we personally prefer like neat lived in backgrounds for like that more organic feel. So you feel like you're looking at a video of a friend or you're looking at a video of a real customer. It just helps sell a little better and be more believable and organic. And then the third thing is we look for creators, which this helps that we find them through TikTok, but we look for creators who show like a fluency in content that looks native to TikTok. So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to making creatives that look native to TikTok, sometimes we're going to have you do transitions. And so if you're not familiar with TikTok, you're going to be like, I'm supposed to jump into one outfit, like from one outfit to the next, or I'm supposed to like snap. So if you work with creators who have, you know, familiarity with TikTok, they'll understand like, oh, she wants me to do a jump transition, or she wants me to do like the cover up the camera and change my outfit or something like that.
It is crazy the difference between onboarding a creator who is totally hip with like everything that Lauren just talked about versus one who's like maybe just starting and like they might have awesome potential and they might crush their first script, but it might only have a few things in their portfolio that they like picked up around their house. But it is a night and day difference when you find a creator who is just like, she gets it. And it is, Lauren, I know you agree with this, but like when you get the final video from our editor and you see that creator for the first time, you're like, I mean, we're blown away because it is such a big difference when it comes to creators that get it and creators that are like close, but there's definitely a little bit of a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to the editing side, because such a good point. We set the stage for what the scripts are. We set the stage for who these people need to embody and like the types of people you're looking for. Editing wise, what does that process look like? Is raw files, instructions to edit? Talk us through that. Maybe Lauren F, you can pick that up first and then pass it to Lauren M after.
Yeah, so our editor will get all the footage that's been uploaded specifically from the creators. And it's just like I had showed you guys, like if it's 12, it's 12 clips. So she'll make sure that she reviews everything, she makes sure that everything is said correctly and done correctly, and then she'll mark it as approved. From there, she'll download all the videos and she'll construct the video together. We'll always add in like commercial sounds, and then we do, I don't know if I mentioned this at all when I was going over the script, but we do put a lot of the text overlays as a part of the script as well for the editor. But she kind of takes the reins on like the parts where maybe it's zoomed in more, or maybe it's like flashing different colors in the background of the text box and things like that. So we definitely trust her with the creative freedom when it comes to putting the full video together. And then we see like the first version of the final video. I will be honest, it probably takes anywhere from like from the first version, there's probably 2 or 3 before we can actually export and send it to the client.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's
Interesting.
pretty much it for that.
Yeah, Lauren M, on your end, is there any additional like color or context to add just on like the editing process?
I think Lauren F hit it on the head. I mean, the creators and
Perfect.
the editor work from the same script that we showed you guys when Lauren F was screen sharing. We do all of the fonts from TikTok. So all of the fonts that you would natively see on the app are the only fonts that we use. All of the colors that you see on the app editor, those are the colors, the only ones that we use, just to continue like the native looking content And those, I sourced those like way back in the day, and it was like by hand. I was like color picking the colors to build that palette. But yeah, I think Lauren F pretty much covered it.
I love it. Everybody who's with us, again, if you have any questions, please throw it into the Q&A. We're about to jump there. And if you see any questions you like, please upvote them. But the last question that I have for both of you, in all honesty, and I just want your, I'm just curious to know in your worlds. So I think a lot of people can like talk the talk, where it's like, hey, we have these creators, you got to do it this way, or something along those lines. So I'm curious, the both of you, are you also content creators when we're talking about like building stuff for your brands you work with?
Yeah, this is a trip down memory lane. Honestly, Lauren and I, when we started the company, it really was like an overnight thing. It was not on purpose. We were originally UGC creators ourselves. So back in December of 2020 or 2021, Lauren,
2021.
2021, we decided to get on Twitter and start marketing ourselves for one by one UGC videos. And so that is kind of how we started getting more and more aware of everything that went into this process. And that was the first jump scare of like, wow, this takes a lot of work. So we definitely understand the ins and outs, and I think that's one of the greatest things about Lauren and I as like actual people is when we work with these creators, we work with these editors, we work with these writers. We're like we remember what this was like we literally know.
Yeah.
But to answer your question in terms of like, do we currently film right now? We try to avoid filming as much as we can, but it ends up happening every once in a while.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, Lauren, it's crazy to see like what like where we've come from, like where we started and where we are now, because this all started from me hitting up Lauren and being like, hey, like there's not really a place for companies to source owned media. Like it's like Billo, Fiverr, or influencers, which charge an arm and a leg. Like you wouldn't source owned media from influencers, as that the only source. So I was like, it was more of like a let's just see. Like let's
Yeah.
just try to sell a couple videos. Like we'll just see.
Yeah.
And so we got on Twitter, and next thing you know, people were like, we were booking sales before our website had launched, which I was
Nice.
like, okay, the demand is crazy here. And then people were hitting us up like, hey, are you two the only faces? Like we need other faces. We have a demographic that's like 50. And we're like, okay, well, like I guess my mom can do it. Like I don't know. And so then like it was just like out of demand. Like Lauren and I never sat down and were like, hey, let's build this agency. Like, let's build this platform. Like it was just out of demand where it was like, okay, I guess we're gonna go with it. And then next thing you know, like we have a whole team of creators. We have a whole internal team.
Yeah. 72 creators later. Here we are.
Let's
Yeah.
go. I love it. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when anyone like tackles the tasks first ultimately, right? Like anyone can kind of instruct in what you believe is a best practice, but if you've lived that life, it's easier to say like, I know it needs to look this way because I remember shooting it in my house in a lived-in background. Let's make it happen. And like have it come to
Yeah.
life there.
It's like crazy when you know exactly what you're asking of each team member because you've done it. Like
Yes.
Lauren and I were the creators, like the talent in front of the camera, the talent behind the camera, editing on CapCut, like every single video. Like I
Yeah.
remember like having such a hard time delivering 8 videos. I was like staying at home on a Saturday on CapCut on my phone, like editing these videos for
On
8 videos. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. Full
Let's get
circle
to
for sure.
yeah, let's get to some of the questions that we have. The audience has been so kind and patient with us, and there's been some upvoting coming in. So I'm going to try my best to get to all of them, but folks, if not, we might have to deal with them offline. But the one that's upvoted the most right now is from Harry H. So
Okay.
I'm just going to move our logo really quickly there. The question is, how many different variations of hook, body, CTA do you film per creative? To then split test with changing the variations, at what point is it too much?
Hmm. That's a great question. So one of the things that our agency emphasizes and our clients care about is net new content. And so, with all of our creative packages that we're delivering, we deliver X amount of videos with X variations that come with it. So, it might be the first video, it's one video, and then we're testing a different hook for it. And then the next video is video two, and then we're testing, we're starting with the end result first. Like we're testing the structure of the video. It can get really like you can go cross-eyed really quick, I feel like, with this. Um, but with all of our packages, we deliver that with the videos ready to go, and we deliver the raw footage. And so primarily we're more on like the creative side, and then usually the brands that we work with have a media buyer. And so the media buyer has a direct pulse on the account day in, day out, and they can see like, okay, this one's kind of popping off. I want to do it an iteration of this, and they can spin one up with the raw footage that we give them. So yeah, we also like tap into their ad account through Motion or just directly in, and we can compare the variations against each other. Like, and then we can use that learning, like I said, across different clients. Like, okay, usually robo voiceovers work really well. Like for example, we could say that, and so we're going to continue to test those on different videos. Or we know like, okay, across different clients in different verticals. Having a video with no voiceover doesn't work well. So we're able
Right.
to compare those variations, but I do think that people can get a little crazy with it where it's like they're testing, 10,000 videos a month. Like it's just like give it a chance to breathe a little bit.
Right.
Amazing. And then we had a question come in from Valerie, and I think everybody's wondering this related to some of the
Yeah.
material, but are you open to sharing a screen grab of the Miro Bank section that you had?
Yeah, that's 100% possible. Let me just pull it back up really quick.
Awesome. If anything, we can include it in the follow-up email that we'll send out after the
Yeah.
event.
Should we do that instead,
Yeah.
where we just
Yeah,
do like a screenshot? Let's do that.
I love it. I love it. Okay. And then another question that we see here is from Laura. How do you choose which variations to test next? Do you have a system slash standard operating procedure, or choose on a case by case basis depending on if I can speak anymore, the metrics?
Um, that's next. Do you have a
I think
system?
it's typically on a case by case basis. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if it's a client that we've worked with before, we have to take into account of like, okay, what have we already tested? What has worked out of those? And then we kind of just go from there. And then sometimes, like if it's a new client and they don't have anything at all, sometimes you just have to go for it, with your best, kind of your best guess. Like I mean, it sounds bad. Like I want to tell you like I have a formula and all this stuff, but it's like it's creative. So it's like sometimes you just are like, okay, well, if they don't have anything for us to work off of, you just have to say like, okay, I think sometimes we'll make the videos like the skeleton of the videos and we're like, ooh, this could work well, or what else could work well is this variation of the video. Like
Mm-hmm.
we feel like this video could be really really strong without a voiceover, or maybe starting with a mashup compilation section at the beginning.
Yeah, and I definitely love that you just said like I want to tell you it's this whole thing that we like have laid out, but I will say like a lot of the winners that we've had across clients over the last year and a half, I would say 50% of them have been variations that we've come up with.
Mm,
And so seeing that is so powerful. And it's like really, really great to like answer her question by saying like sometimes you just kind of gotta go for it. And guess what? It ends up working out.
It's also
So
really cool though, after hearing both of you speak today, it's like you did the work up front to learn the brand and learn the person. Like now that that's just embodied in you, like that's where some of that random brainstorming comes from at the end of the day. So it's
for
like, it's so cool to see how it marries just the work that you've done and the efforts you put in with the like random creativity that's going to pop into the brain too. Right.
for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew has a question. We talked about variations quite a bit. And the question that Andrew has is there are so many variations of ads that can come out of a mural board or just like over time in general. How do you systematically keep track of performance over time on that?
Mhm. So we'll use motion to keep track of the performance in our
This
ads.
is not a plug for them. This is
I'm like, this
genuinely
isn't
what
an
we
ad.
do.
But that's where we'll be able to keep track of performance, or like Lauren had mentioned, directly in the ads manager. And as far as variations go, like maybe there's something that we didn't say like super specifically up front, but when it comes to our creative packages, all of our creative packages come with one variation. So if the brand works with us over, the course of, 3 months or whatever the case might be, every month they're getting a new variation. So there's so many different opportunities for variations, but we're not usually the type of agency, which maybe Andrew might know another agency that's doing this or something, but we're not the type of agency that's sitting there being like, okay, let's come up with 25 variations for this one ad. Like that's not really what we're doing right now. We're kind of taking it a little bit at a smaller scale. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think we have definitely made use of like the naming and tagging system in Motion. So, like, if we wanted to tag videos that have like robot voice or like a voiceover versus no voiceover, like we would tag that in the file name so that we can filter it out and see like, okay, how does this compare to the other, or how do these compare overall?
Sweet. And we might run up, this might be the last question. We'll see how this starts to work out in the grand scheme of things here. But a question that Rich has is now looking into your brains and best practices we can pull. But what are some of the best models work for you guys for ads? So what are some of the best using themes here or angles? So examples being us for STEM, problem solution. Are there consistent winners for you?
We're big on the problem solution. The I had X problem. I mean, it would be a little bit juicier and sexier than this, but I have X problem. I found this, and this is how it helped me. I guess that's the bare bones of the framework. That works really well. Like that's our go-to. However, we have seen some winners with the us versus them, especially using like a split screen. I know we keep falling back on the medical scrubs brand that we have been working on, but we've just worked with them for so long that we just know them like the back of our hand. And for them, we have a winner that is an us versus them, where it's like the them side of the split screen is water being poured on scrubs and it just soaks all the way through, and then us is water being poured and it just rolls right off. So that's super powerful, being able to see that actual comparison and the transformation effect, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But the one script that I did show was the one where it went hook, lead in, results, transformations, slash transformations, value props, CTA. So that's
Love
one that
it.
we use a lot.
So good. Everybody, we've made it through. We've built these personas. We figured out what to make. We've briefed creators. We've found the right creators. And we've made it all come to life with these two amazing women. Give it up, everybody in the chat. Show them some love for Lauren Mabra and Lauren
Yay.
Ferry, everybody.
Yay. Thank you so
Amazing.
much, Evan.
Oh,
Yeah,
this
thank
is
you for
super
having
fun.
us. This is awesome.
This was super fun. Everyone whose questions didn't get to, apologies. We're going to send the recording out and all that good stuff after. But everybody, enjoy the rest of your days, and we're all going to chat really, really soon, okay?
Thank
Amazing.
you. Bye, guys.